Hello, friends, and welcome to this short series on business analysis interview. I'm releasing this in two parts. So, this is part one, which would basically cover the process of business analysis interviews, which is common in many organizations. And I'll also try and give you an insight into what can you expect, the sort of stages you will go through once you've made your application, and then how you're expected to perform in these through these stages, and what is it you can do to improve your performance. So let's dive right into it. Right. The first thing is structure of an interview, right? This can be applicable to any IT or non-IT related roles, and once is obviously once you would make your application through one of the available means. It could be online through the employer's website, or it could be on one of the job portals, or you might just drop an email with your cover letter and CV to one of the hiring managers or recruiters upon their advice or suggestion, or their advert in the newspapers, or whatnot. Obviously, any source. So once you've made your application, this is what you can expect. These are the common. Well, there can be more or less stages involved in an interview. So every organization and every position requires different sort of interview process. So many companies obviously will tell you upfront as to what you can expect throughout the application process, or but usually through the IT world, and especially business analysis, I have come across these all these stages that I've mentioned here. So let's cover them in short brief. And this is just to give you an idea. Obviously, you are not interviewing for the first time, so not doing this for someone who's very new to interviewing process. I would advise them to go on other videos to learn about basics of interviewing. But this is focused at business analysts. So these are the kind of stages you can expect in an interview for the position of BA. Right. So the first thing which would initiate the process, the formal process of recruitment in an organization, is your application. And once one of the recruiter has gone through your application, and if they suppose or assume your skills and your CV is relevant to what they're looking for, the open positions, and if that matches, then they'll obviously call you to screen you, obviously see your real um, and have a few words about your current situation as to why you're looking to change positions, and whether you are working right now, and if you're looking for a change, what is the motivation behind this change. So, and also they will try and understand about your family background a little bit. This isn't, of course, to dig deeper into your life, but this is just to understand your motivations behind why you're sort of looking to change positions now, whether it is for career progression or whether it's because you are having to move from one location to the other, and you cannot control the the reasons for you having to move. Maybe because there's a family situation which has arisen, and you will have to move back home, or to some other place to obviously accommodate for that situation. So um, this is what particularly will be looked at when you get a call from recruiters. So this is not um, time to panic. This is, you can just relax. Give them just enough information about yourself. Um, do not disclose everything, and mm, too deep, um, personal, but give them, they are also a human being, and they want you to be successful, and that's why they are approaching you. Otherwise, they probably have received, would have received, hundreds of application for a job. So the reason behind choosing you is obviously you look, your initial CV impressions tell the recruiters that you're the kind of person which would be more successful in this type of role, and that they have open. So um, you've obviously made to the first list of shortlists. So and not a reason to cheer up, but obviously a reason to thank the recruiter for taking time to obviously go through your CV, and obviously spending this time with you over the phone. So this is how you can obviously handle telephone screening. Then we have hiring manager telephonic. So this is the second stage. Usually usually it is the second stage, but it may or may not be the case for each and every organization. They might just call you for an in-person interview. So based on where you are located, if you will have to travel far, then they will accommodate that, and they will arrange for this telephonic interview with the manager. And once you're through that, and if that is to be avoided, then you'll be called for an in-person interview, which obviously you'll be seen, you'll be spoken to, and you'll be given a chance to imagine yourself as an employee of that organization, and see if it's good enough for how you feel about the organization, whether you still want to carry on, and if you are happy with everything which you see and feel, then obviously an opportunity for them to um, give you scenarios, and see allow you to meet a few people who are already, part of the team where you are going to be working in, and to obviously see your performances through various questions, through giving you a live demo of how the system works, and what you feel, understanding your views on the system and the team, and seeing whether your opinion and your ethos would be suitable for the team and the role, of course. And this in-person interviews, you might also be presented with a case study, and this may not always be the case, but case studies for VA role are common, are very common, especially the big consulting companies such as Deloitte and Accenture. And I've personally seen Virgin Media and Virgin Airlines. These companies also take you through this process of in their in-person interview. They would case study would be part of their interview process. And finally, I'm going to be covering video interview. It isn't any different from in-person interview, just that it will be remotely based, and you'll be given and this flexibility as to how you would like to attend this interview. You can either go online through your telephone device or through your laptop computers, and the sessions will be recorded. Obviously, it can be viewed multiple times before they calibrate your interview and make a final decision. So I'm going to take you through the key points of each of these stages and or structure of an interview. So let's look at the telephone screening. Telephone screening is the first interaction, like I've told you, once you've applied for a job. The recruiter will first call you to understand your motivations behind looking for a new role, and see whether your communication skills, your interpersonal skills are suitable for the role. And first impressions always play an important role. So this is of course, this initial conversation is also very, very important. So you'll have to obviously pay attention at how you address the other person. Try and get their details before you ever try to address them, because few people do not like to be, just called sir, or just called excuse me, Mr. or Miss or Mrs. whatever. So although as they introduce themselves, they are supposed to obviously give you their name and the company they're calling from, and what is the subject of their calls. So this is mandatory information which should be given. However, if you miss this information, please make efforts to ask for this information again, because this would give both, if this would give your conversation more personalized approach, and you can come out with personalized. It would feel more sort of directly addressed to a person, rather than being generic about your opinion and views. So try and get their name, and ask them if it is okay to call them by their first name. These things tell the interviewer, is this important? Well, I would say yes, it is important. Um, of course, recruitment is a sales process, and as one guy selling you the opportunity to work for a company, and you will have to sell your candidature for this role. So it is very much there is human interaction, which is mandatory, and that's why your skills, your interpersonal and communication skills will play an important role. So what is assist? Assessment here is not technical, but it's your life in general. And yes, of course, they might ask you a couple of questions if the recruiter is more sort of from a technical background, and they would pose you a few questions about the role, tell you a little bit about the role, and see how excited or motivated you get after hearing about the role and the company. So this is what they will give. Like I said, it is the initiation of a sales process. They are trying to sell you the position. You're trying to sell your candidature for the role. So this is where each of you or the recruiter will give you all the necessary information about the organization. And in case if you are not given enough information, you're always supposed to ask more questions, because this stage is not assessed. So I think assessment is not the right word for this process of telephone screening. Usually lasts for about 10-15 minutes, and like I've explained, those are the key important things you will have to remember when you're preparing for this screening. Well, you do not really have to prepare for a telephone screening. Other than that, of course, try and understand about the organization that you're applying for in advance, so to give them best impressions. Try and understand about the roles, and see through their news and blogs and latest updates, so that you stand a better chance of getting to the further stages of the interview. So this is what is a usual approach on how to be well prepared for telephone screening. Let's move on to the hiring manager telephonic. So this is usually once you've been pushed further into the recruitment process, your CV will be sent to the hiring manager, obviously giving a brief introduction about yourself, and the conversation that you've had with the recruiter will be part of this brief, and the hiring manager will be given your you know bullet points, you can call, about how you performed in the first telephone screening, and that possibly may influence hiring managers you know uh, opinion about you. So which won't be formed until after this telephonic with hiring manager, but it always helps us, certain words that recruiters use before they forward you to the hiring manager would play a key role as to how many candidates, the hiring manager would actually interview. It's not mandatory. There may only be one position going at the minute, and the telephone screening has been has been done on 4 to 5 applicants, just to give the hiring manager a scope to work in, and to obviously you know make a successful submission of the CVs. So recruiters' performance will be judged based on what type of CVs, what content, what quality of candidates is he pushing through the interview process, because ultimately that's where the success or the failure of an interview process would be based on. So there's a lot of investment. Time taken off by the hiring manager costs a lot of money to the employer, to the organization. So the initial stages in any interview are very, very important, because they set or pave the way for yourself into the organization. So this is usually when a hiring manager conducts a telephonic interview, they would be focused on your CV and situational and behavioral questions, such as taking you through the ups and downs of what the common IT role would in an organization. So they will give you certain scenarios and see how you feel about them, whether you have gone through similar situations, and what would you do, how would you resolve a situation or scenario. So typically in a BA role, this is of again more importance, because and this is what BAs do, being tactical, considering different scenarios of a solution, and putting your strengths to work and working on your weaknesses to improve your abilities as a BA, and what all previous employers or projects that you've worked on, have you gone through similar situations, and how did you behave in those situations, is what the hiring manager would try and understand, usually focused around your CV, and they will try and see whether you're a fit for the role. So be very, very this phase can be tactical. Of course, like I said, they will have multiple options. The hiring managers will be sent at least 5 or 10 CVs by the recruiters. Depending on the demands of the role, and most of the candidates will be very closely compatible to the role. So making a decision from the competition is entirely in your hands as a candidate. How do you make the hiring manager feel? Whether you are good in decision making, whether you're good as a team player, whether you how do you resolve any conflict with your colleagues and co-workers and managers, of course, and their own point of view also. Hiring managers' point of view is what have they you know felt when they worked with the previous BA, or whether this is going to be a new position. If it is a new position, then they might not have any experience to bank on. I mean, not that not in what they are doing as such, but this particular role, if this is going to be a new addition to their team, then you have a little bit of a leeway, so you can put yourself out more sort of in a confident way, because that's what will be um, assessed at this point. So if they have worked with other BAs before, and if this is going to be a replacement position, you are going to be replacing one of their existing BAs, then they will certainly look for, depending on the other BA's performance, and if it is your, obviously, you also can try and understand the reasons behind why this position was created in the first place, to understand whether it was for someone who's leaving the organization, or it is a new position, or it is going to be an additional position working along with other a couple of BAs. So once you understand this, you can stand better chances to present yourself in a more confident way. So put out relevant skills. Like you will see, it's raining, and it is imperative to grab an umbrella before you leave home. So similarly, in this situation, when you're with the hiring manager, see whether what kind of a temperament, or what kind of a environment they've come from, and show your relevant skills, so you'll be fit for that environment, and their team. So give them more confidence on your own fit for the role. Let's move forward. Right, in-person interview. This is this is actually the very I would say last but one stages of an interview before you can be offered the position. So again, we're moving up the ladder, so it becomes even more important at this stage to be fully prepared. Detailed information, or a typical in-person interview process may be described by the interviewer. In some cases, it may not be disclosed upfront, because it's just, they would just tell you over the phone what would happen on the day, or you would get a quick email from the recruiter as to what you can expect on that day. So depending on that, may involve seniors, managers, and C-level executives. So depending on what kind of organization you're going to be interviewing in. I remember once I went for a small company which was a shipping. They made shipping software where I had to be interviewed by the C-level executives, because they did not have much of an hierarchy, and not many teams were working on this product. So there was just the CEO himself was a product owner, so he also was a C-level executive. So this is for smaller companies. So of course, depending on the size and the culture of an organization, you might get a chance to meet a very high level of executives also in an organization. Usually involves a lot of scenarios and case study and real-time problems. So these managers or seniors or C-level executives, you will give you the scenarios that you can expect in this role. There may be a case study which you will have to solve, and they will take you through some real-time problems if you're working for this organization, day in, day out, what you can be, exposed to, and how would you, quickly, obviously resolve these problems, and at least if you can present a hypothesis or a framework which it obviously comes from the level of experience you have. So if you are more sort of a seasoned BI, then you would of course feel that it's very easy to crack any sort of case study or real time or a scenario based interview. However, if you do not have much experience, and if you're interviewing for rather a senior position, then you will have to prepare a lot in upfront. Sometimes they would give you the necessary information about the case study, but they may not tell you anything at all. They wouldn't even tell you there's going to be a case study in your in-person interview. So you will have to tactically again ask the recruiter what happens in a day, in an in-person interview. So types of case studies in this scenario. So usually this will be focused around the business, the kind of work and the products they develop, or if it's a consulting organization, they would just put one of their client situations for you to resolve. So for example, now if you go for Deloitte for an interview, they might tell you one of their clients who sell fashion accessories are looking to build a website, for example. So they are looking to digitize their business. What approach would you take as a BA, and how would you obviously begin working on this project? What kind of preparations would you do, and what are the BA activities which will be required in this situation? And once you work a little bit on case study, they might also ask you questions based on your hypothesis. So for example, in the said case study of a fashion accessories client of Deloitte, you probably would assume certain things, and you will have to disclose them first. So you will tell them that to digitize this business, you would suggest them to obviously build a website and have an app for mobile devices. So this is kind of very, very important. They might now, if once you put down these suggestions, you'll be asked like, what would you do first? What would you suggest the client should do first? Build a website or develop an app? So these kind of questions, doing deeper analysis, understanding how you formed your hypothesis or your framework, how you have constructed your framework. Every BA, depending on their experience, again, may have various frameworks that they sometimes. I've also met BAs and I've worked with BAs who have developed their own frameworks. One of the interesting ones, which was part of one of the books, which was written by highly experienced software professionals, was Brown Cow framework. So this divided now how. So obviously uh, you know, what is the current situation of the business, what they want to achieve in the future, and obviously how they are achieving it now, and how they would, or how they can achieve it in the future. This is what, so the similar kind of frameworks you can develop depending on the level of experience you have, and the kind of projects you've worked on. So to prepare, obviously your experience will make you an expert in this area. And if you want to read more, and just search for example case studies of IT companies, and you'll come across lots and lots of case studies which have been part of many interviews. And there may, of course, be YouTube videos be available on this topic. I also would soon release some videos which will focus on case studies, um, but obviously it takes a lot of time creating these videos, apart from your work and family time. You'll have to find time to do these things. It's not always easy, so I will try and create a video on case studies as soon as possible. Right, let's move forward. We have case studies, right? I've given some um, you know um, describe case study here. Try to, of course, focus study on a pre-informed case. So like I said, sometimes you'll be given upfront information in the email to invite you for an in-person interview, and they will tell you to prepare in advance. You sometimes are allowed to bring your own presentation to the interview, or you can send it beforehand to the recruiter in email, and that will be part of your interview, of course. Um, like I've spoken in the previous slide, hypothesis and frameworks are very important. Business analysis is the field where these things play an important role. So you're supposed to have your own hypothesis and frameworks available to crack on any in hand and future problem statements that you would come across. And right, when you're, of course, this isn't always true. You'll be given upfront information about case study. Yes, if you are um, told in an email that you will have to expect a case study as part of your in-person interview, they would disclose. They may not disclose. If they disclose, they would tell you, and you can prepare and send your presentation in advance. Why is it important? Yes, it is important to analyze, of course, your analysis skills. So how would you perform in the job, and how organized you are in resolving situations with the client. How would you communicate with the client? Your approach, your professional attitude, your presentation skills, your abilities to take on the audience, and your ability to lead, and get sort of um, a the thing done right. So doing the thing right and doing the right thing. So both these things depend very much on how the requirements are presented to the development team, and how they are prioritized. So these case studies would obviously give the managers or interviewers your an in-depth overview of your abilities as to how you'll be performing on this job, and whether you would need any training, which always is in your favor. I would say prepare as much as you can in advance to avoid any disappointments at this stage. Right. So video interview. Why video is to obviously be flexible. Some companies take this approach to save your time commuting for an in-person interview, and video platforms today um, are much better, and they're almost like sitting in person in front of the interviewer. So um, many companies now relying on Skype and Hire or other video platforms. And the format is pretty much similar to an in-person or in-person interview, so nothing changes here, except that you'll be sitting at your home, and may not always be a suitable format of an interview, because we are used to performing well in a professional environment. For example, now if I have wife and children, then it might not give you that professional feel to perform in a video interview. So depends, every individual is different, so different people perform um, actually good from home. So preparation is almost similar to how you would prepare for telephonic or in-person interview, so nothing much changes here. Right, there we go. All the best with your interview, and wait for part two. We'll cover all the frequently asked questions in a business analysis interview. So that's me, Sahil Sarmasam. I took this approach to introduce myself in the end, because who I am is not as important um, as how I can help you perform better in your interviews as a BA. So I myself work as a BA. I've worked for small, medium, and large corporate organizations. I've worked for a bank in my current project. So I'll keep you updated with that's going to follow, of course, real-time scenarios and experiences from my professional career as a BA. But for now, I would stop here, and I will wish you luck if you're attending for an interview before I release a part two. But if I do release part two, then do not forget to subscribe and follow my channel for new updates. Thanks ever so much, and meet you in the next part. Thank you.